Welcome to the second Friday in June. My name is Mark Long, rector of the parish of St Andrews in Newlands, Cape Town. Welcome to Fridays with Mark. And on that note, thank you for responding to my request for some creative names for this time together. I have been quite overwhelmed by the amount of contribution that I have received from you all, and I'm busy just reflecting on those. So thank you for that gift. Today, I'd like to reflect on inclusivity. I'm struck that in the first book of the Bible, in Genesis, chapter 1, in fact, verse 27, we're reminded that God created human beings in God's image. Each one of us carries the image of God. It's what, in a sense, unites us as God's family. The temptation to be exclusive is incredibly high. As we explore biblical history and history of faith, too often the people of God in one form or another have been exclusive, have put up walls, have put up boundaries, have ensured that there are those who are kept on the boundaries of our awareness and our existence. The fact that we are created in God's image, whether or not we acknowledge God, does not take away from the fact that we carry that image, and that is what unites us from a faith perspective as human beings and as all of humanity. No one is excluded in that sense from God's love on any level. For me, profoundly about Jesus' ministry was that he continuously drew in and included those that his society had pushed aside and pushed away. People are scandalized because he has dinner with the tax collectors. He spends time with the prostitutes. He speaks to Samaritans, not only Samaritans, but Samaritan women, things that were just anathema to Jewish society, Israelite society at the time. Jesus continuously drawing people in. If we even look just at the makeup of the close 12 that were around him, incredible breadth of political outlook, from zealots to tax collectors. Just an amazing, I just cannot imagine what being part of that smaller community around Jesus must have been like. Many differing views and contrasting and even conflicting views about life on all sorts of levels. Yet Jesus embraced everyone. And I think if we're going to deal with those barriers that we put around ourselves that allow an exclusivity to take place, if we're going to deal with those, we can only deal with it by really asking, what is God's purpose for human beings and human life? And there are probably a million different answers to that question. But in this particular instance, it's that we carry the image of God, and we are called to be about the purposes of God in our world. And one of those purposes is to embrace and to include all into the realm of what God is up to. It's too easy sometimes in our own faith context, even within our Christian faith. It's easy to say, well, I'm this, and you don't believe what I believe, and so you're not welcome. We can do that within our Anglican faith, let alone to people beyond the Anglican faith. In the interfaith context, one of the ongoing problems is that we struggle to accept that people may have a different spiritual experience to the one we have. And to limit God on that level for me seems incredibly dangerous, because God, in my own experience, as soon as I think I have a handle on who God is, and I put the boundaries around that definition, I will have an experience, and I'm sure it's God organized, that shatters that particular boundary. And sometimes that is an external experience, but very often it's an internal experience. The recent focus on us needing to address racism, structural, systemic, and institutionalized racism in our lives is part of that. It's saying there are boundaries here. You may not always be conscious of that boundary, but it needs to be shattered. There needs to be change. And so the challenge is for us to explore the breadth of our lives, not just our personal space and not just our personal faith in terms of relationship with God, but to explore the communal space and to ask ourselves, how is God, and what is God asking of us in terms of what boundaries or barriers around ourselves need to be broken and shattered? And who have we pushed to the edges of our awareness that we need to draw in again? And how is that actually impacting on our own spiritual health and well-being, our relational health and well-being, and beyond that, our societal health and well-being? It's so easy to look out there. It's easy to criticize others, but actually to start with ourselves, for me to ask that question of me: where and who am I seeking to exclude from my awareness? And allowing the Spirit of God to open my insight into those areas of exclusion in the way I'm living. And so I'd encourage us to take some time to reflect around that. I came across a lovely quote which I'd like to share with you. It comes from Diane Richler, past president of Inclusion International. And she says, inclusion is not a strategy to help people fit into the systems and structures which exist in our societies. It is about transforming those systems and structures to make it better for everyone. I think, for me, that is a wonderful definition of what it means to be about becoming more inclusive. And realizing that it's not just a fuzzy concept, a nice, fuzzy, warm concept, but it actually is something that requires a great deal of discomfort as we examine the structures around us and how we have allowed those to become things that really pander to our desire for comfort, for security, and just a protection kind of mechanism ultimately from others. And so if we are all made in God's image, how does that open us up to seeing each other differently, more fully, to allowing our relationships with each other to become more whole? Let us seek to embrace the example of Jesus in terms of the way he reached out into his own society in his own time. And let us find ways to do that meaningfully and effectively and transformingly in our own world today.